And we are live. Sweet. What's going on, guys? We got Crypto Kool-Aid, Giffordware, and Maximus J. These are all part of the Pulsar team, and hopefully we can get to the bottom of the question. What is Pulsar?
Thanks for having us on, dude. And congratulations on everything you guys launched. It was a beautiful launch, and yeah, everything's pretty wild these days.
It went so damn smooth. I'm so happy with like the extent of our issues were just very minor UI front end. It was just like, oh, change the variable, re-upload, good to go. And fixing people's problems, like while I'm on an 8-hour stream, we're getting problems fixed on the front end. Like it was,
Nice.
you can't get any more smooth than that, if you ask me.
Hell yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely. Well done. Yeah, I know very well about, those environmental variables and how they can trip you up for sure. Yeah, but very cool, man. I'm really excited to hear a little bit more in depth about your protocol.
Yeah, absolutely. We can go into it. And one of the things I learned with Helios is to add a start button on your smart contract. Not just it goes live as soon as it gets, included in a block when you launch it. Because then you're like with Helios, gas prices went up to 200 Gwei. And it was like, well, I said I was going to launch at this time. I'm going to launch, and
I remember that now. I remember that. It was like the highest Gwei day in forever, right?
Like out of nowhere, like an hour before launch, it was just like, bam, huge spike. It was costing people like $70+ to start a miner.
Rough.
And it cost me over a full ETH to launch all the contracts. And we launched late because you got to link the contracts, and then you got to do this, and gas is going crazy, and we ended up being delayed. And so like what I learned from that is with Element 280 we designed this to where there is a start function, so we were able to launch the contracts ahead of time, get them all linked together. You can make sure all this looks right and check these variables. Okay, everything's great, the website's syncing up. Now on start day, it's literally just send the transaction through, start minting, like so much more smooth,
Right.
Oh, and I guess that's really something for the devs out there.
Well, I mean, that's kind of one of the main parameters on why we wanted to build Pulsar the way we did, is to make sure that, Titanx is proof of Ethereum. If you look at how it all comes together and what they will want to use as leverage on ETH. But when ETH does run, that Gwei cost is expensive. So if you actually have a basket of Titanx over on a cheap area that you have access to the funds or all the rest, you get that benefit. Plus you have the, again, ability to build on Titanx over on Pulse Chain and many other different options that hopefully are going to be available, but also about bridging and binding communities together. And that's the one thing I love about the build on Titanx ethos, is that a lot of people aren't fighting. There's not drama going back and forth, and everyone's happy to help build and work with each other and move everything in a common goalpost in the right direction for DeFi for all, rather than just being about one particular aspect of their token or their, shiny rock that they like the most. And so like with everything come together, it really is what DeFi for all is meant to be. Everyone, trying to share that view frustrum for the betterment of all.
Yes. Yeah. I feel like I'm a broken record when it comes to that. Just how the way the ecosystem is designed, you almost you're pretty much guaranteed in supporting other projects, at least indirectly in some way or fashion. Like you guys are directly supporting DragonX and Helios by sending Titanx to their treasuries, which they are doing their job in locking it up forever. So it's out of circulation. But you're helping their treasuries grow, and they're earning more ETH, and that ETH is going towards the ecosystem. But then also you guys are using Titanx yourselves, and you're pulling that off the market, and that's indirectly helping every single project built on Titanx. I feel like that's one of the biggest foundations of, when people are asking like, what is Titanx? How is that? Like, what's the selling point of it? To me, that's what it is. Like, you're inherently creating all these builders that don't know each other at all. They're just coming together with the common goal of their project, but their project is bonded to Titanx. So as long as everybody is doing their work to try to lock it up and burn it, then you're supporting everybody, and we all win. And I feel like we've seen that. Like there hasn't been a flop launch to date. You know, like everything that comes out has done well, in my opinion. And I think there's no coincidence there. Like it's baked in, and exactly what Pulsar is doing. You guys have got both of those things. You're directly and indirectly supporting Titanx.
That's right. And what's interesting is that when Pulse runs, it can do a significant more X's than Ethereum can do because the cycle of the coin. And then because of that, you've got one side that it runs up. You've got the arbitrage that can happen from the dynamic ceiling, and then moving that back through, it'll continuously move Titanx over to Pulse Chain, which theoretically locks it off from the Ethereum system, unless you want to bring it back over, making the arbitrage system burn more Titanx, burn more Pulsar, which continues the flywheel in a completely different direction, being that it's moving to a different chain. But then it also gives that basket the ability for people that we all like Pulse Chain as well, especially from the fees. It takes what, $2.50 to deploy a smart contract versus the thief on Ethereum. That you just got so much more options being multi-chain and being multi-community and use cases together.
Well, hey, let's not fund it. It's more like 33 cents per contract. that was a good 5x FUD right there, or more.
I will say that, like, yeah, when I was launching Giannis and I was doing some testing, I was like, why deal with testnet? Like, it's so cheap. I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna launch a mainnet. So there's like 4 Giannis contracts out there. They're not in use, that's why I always follow official contract addresses and links and all that. But yeah, it made it my life easier to just test on mainnet. And I was like, yeah, it's worth the few bucks to do that. So
yeah, and I think just that mythos right there is where we got to the beginning idea of Pulsar, and then the dev story and how we got there, and all the rest is a story for if we want to go into it today or not. But eventually, we decided we wanted to learn the components that we wanted to be using on Pulse Chain as we went through GIF to PGIF to iBurn to then the dynamic ceiling through stable and noble, because we wanted to build on other people's ways to make it deflationary, to take it from something that was started as a meme coin that actually could be destructed more than just send it to a dead address. And then to suss out these things in real time, simulation, not speculation. And then from there, take all of those use cases as something that's been not just audited, but sussed out and looked at and taken a stress test, and then now combine it to the ultimate form of build on Titanx with these, specific use cases that have gone through the test.
Yeah, I would say, go ahead.
I was just going to say that took way longer than we were expecting to do all that, but like if we wouldn't have, it would have probably set up Pulsar for failure. So in fact, I know it would have. So because the original theories and direction that we were going just wouldn't have played out the way that we thought it would have. So, and people following along, they might not understand the journey, but it's like GIF taught us a lot, PGIF taught us a lot, and how we stack those two together. And then the iBurn piece, stable, noble, all of those, nope. That all gave us like the pieces to make Pulsar actually be what we wanted it to be, and then act as what we want it to be now, which is a base layer, a foundational layer that can be built on top of, and obviously bring economic energy over to Pulse Chain.
Right. Well, what's interesting about the iBurn experience is we were the first people to create parity in between Pulse Chain and Ethereum right there. So that was a very interesting use case for not only restart the EHEX flywheel, the icosahedron flywheel, and all the rest of that, to have the combination of 2 different tokens happen with one being through the bridge.
Yeah, so yes. I feel like we should back up just a little bit and kind of just start with like so what is Pulsar? This is the Pulsar team. Like this is not your first rodeo. Like you guys have been doing the Gifford Tech Is there any other projects in addition to that, or like, and if not, I mean, like, let's just kind of talk about GIF and what y'all have accomplished and like what you were saying earlier, and just kind of go from there.
Yeah, we decided to start building for Pulsar first, right? Because we were all really, big, heavily invested into Titan X when that launched. I still remember, Kool-Aid calling me in the middle of the night and telling me, like, you got to take a closer look at this, right? And you got to look at these mechanics and the way they bind on each other. And I'm like, all right, yeah, I'll take a look. And then, dude, I got pumped into it and, did well in that. And so, I was already on my engineering kind of journey. So I was like, this is probably time that I could switch over and start learning some Web3 stuff. And I'm like, if I'm going to build on, such a great platform as Titan X, I need to put the work in. Like, I can't just like walk in and just start messing with things. So that's when we decided, all right, let's start this brand. We're going to do gift tech. We're going to build on Pulse Chain. We're going to build within a community where we're already known. Like, people know us. They've known us for years, or even longer than that for some of us. And so they all knew what we were trying to do. And we had lots of good conversations, and we already had a community that we were talking with. So that's when the testing started, right? And a lot of things with our testing is just because it's a test doesn't mean it's worthless, right? Or that it's gonna fail. We put in our best efforts to make things exciting, exciting results. And one of them was like, with GIF, when we first launched, when I wrote and launched the PermaGIF contract, we watched GIF do a 30,000x in less than 6 months. I think it was right around the 6-month mark of launching GIF. It did a 30,000x, like, just insane. Started at 0.1 pulse at deployment, dropped a majority of liquidity on that day, and then just gradually was putting more and more into the pools as time went on. And it went to over 3,000 pulse per GIF token. It was absolutely insane, and it's probably one of the only time periods where you have like a founder / dev guy say, like, guys, this is like way overbought, man. This is not the gear that are making this work. This is everybody was learning about this buy and burn that really Titan X was setting the stage for, right? Like, this is where all this was coming from. You could go back further and say, Pulse X really started the whole buy and burn kind of movement within our ecosystems, but tip of the hat to everybody, right? And people started to really understand like what's happening within a buy and burn, right? They really started to wrap their heads around that, and they got super excited. And the price chart shows just exactly how excited they got. So then we wanted to make things better. So we kept reiterating, we kept trying to make improvements everywhere we could. I think it was Kool-Aid who first suggested the
dynamic ceiling.
Dynamic ceiling, yes. And so, I told him right away, because I'm still learning a lot of this stuff at this point in time. So I told him, I was like, that's not possible. Like, we can't do that. I was like, let me reach out to my OG Ethereum devs and see what they think. And they're just like, oh yeah, we can do that. It's like, really? And then they started teaching me like how it could be done. And then there you go. The rest is history. That all started to work. So now we're like, okay, now our pieces are really starting to form together on how we want to build on Titan X, because we want to do it right the first time. We don't want to rush to market. There's a lot of people that wanted to rush to market. And we're like, no, we want to do this. We want to do this thing right. And even we could do it as best as we could, and people are still not going to get it. Or they're not going to like it, or they're going to have their opinions, right? But all we can control is what we can do, right? So we're focused on what we're doing. And so we're looking at this and we're like, all right, the pieces are coming together. And what was the last piece? I got linked up with, I think it was with Eric first. And Eric's like, hey, maybe instead of burning, maybe send some to some treasuries. And, and I'm like, that's a really good idea. Like, that's a really good idea. And I reached out to the dude. I reached out to, I won't name everybody, but like 2 or 3 other founders. I'm like, hey, do you have any smart contract where we could deposit Titan X into? Because we want to give everybody a nod who's been around at this point in time, right? This was couple months ago, something like that, maybe more. And so then we're like, all right, let's start plugging this in. So I'm diving into the code. I'm like, dude, we could do this. This is fairly easy. We'll just take from the burning stack that we were going to burn before, and we're going to help out our ecosystem, right? And we're going to send some to the treasuries. And this is not like the more like Pulsar is like nobody even really knows what it is yet, and we're already seeing like not, I mean, it's, you know, I wouldn't laugh at the amounts that we're sending to the treasuries, but dude, it's not negligible. Like it's like, all right, sweet. Like this helps, right? And you want to see as many Titan X sources coming in as you could possibly see. Am I right, dude?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like
Just
that's
funneling the system.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Where you almost are always indirectly helping everybody else just by adding another use case to the token in itself. That helps the system in itself. But
Well, it's keystones and cornerstones, right? And that builds the multi-threaded foundation that works as not just a support system, but as an anchoring system for other derivatives or other use cases that are built upon. The more that you're circling around with those intricate foundations, that's why Roman arches still exist today versus a flat bridge, is because a keystone, cornerstone, and how everything anchors everything in together. So by going not just from the flywheel, but the support and longevity system, that's exactly what you want to see through multiple different protocols working together, not against each other, just like people should be working together in DeFi for all, rather than, you know, your shiny rock's better than someone else's shiny rock, which turns into toxicity and et cetera, where this is a completely different thing. And that is the genius of the build on Titan X system, is because it builds the camaraderie, which is actually the most important part of building communities, is camaraderie.
yes, yeah, and I love that. I really enjoy all of these streams and talking to you guys, you know, on Telegram and DMs and all that. Like, it is a great space. I really do enjoy it.
Rare.
So
Rare. It's not like most other chains. Most chains do not behave this way. Even Pulse chain doesn't behave this way, which hopefully protocols like Pulsar can help change that. You know, but there's always division even within these communities on a chain, which is just so weird because we're all after the same thing. So it's like, kind of got to stop doing that, you know?
Yeah, and I
So,
just to add on to that, to piggyback at that a little bit, like if you're like new into the crypto space, you know, one thing that's really easy to do is just pop up into one community and only be in that community the entire time, and everybody will like you. But when you try to do something a little unique, where you're trying to bring communities together and you're trying to build a stronger crypto ecosystem on the tenement of what we believe in, that is hard. Every camp will have something to say about what you're doing on the other side. Every time. It's a very hard balance. But we do it to better all the ecosystems that we like and that we're a part of and we're invested in and we want to build on, right? So it could get to be a little much, and it makes comms very hard, right? That's one thing that we haven't been keeping up with the way we should, is communicating with each of our sectors. And one of our most important sector is obviously Titan X. And so you're going to be seeing a whole lot more of us, unfortunately.
Well, to be fair, also too, like, you know, you particularly are wearing multiple hats. You know, you're wearing the founder hat, which the founder is usually running around on streams all day long because they have that ability, that flexibility, and you're playing like lead dev role. So there's like, okay, well, I got to be heads down, you know, for 12, 16 hours a day to develop, but I also kind of need to be out there streaming. So that's a difficult juggle. So, but yeah, so do we want to kind of pivot into like some basics here, you know, takes.
Yeah. I just wanted to point out. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to point out just real quick, like, so you guys y'all launched, you know, the gift tech, and I wanted to point out, like, doing it live, I feel like that battle test a project when you've got real money involved, you're inviting a lot more people, you know, a lot more eyes and black hats, and I feel like it, you know, I guess I'm trying to say, like, the battle testing on a live mainnet with real money involved, I think is a lot. What's the word? It's just better than just a test net, you know, where nobody's messing with it. So,
well, it was definitely a training day situation, because when Giff said he launched Giffordware, he was just be like, I'm just playing around right now.
yeah.
I had no idea that was going to be our first final form moving forward till like 2 or 3 weeks. I was in the middle of a meeting with my boss. I didn't even buy the token for like 2 weeks. I thought it was Giff just playing around with stuff. And then suddenly this became a real thing. And then Giff is, you know, talking about, like, we got people sniffing anything that comes off of the buy and burn, that people are pinging and front running whatever we're trying to build new components to do simulation, not speculation, try something new that we learned from the last experiment to experiment for the richness of that learning process. And because they'd already seen what GIF was doing, they're automatically starting to do front run and build scam tokens and doing all this other stuff while we're just trying to interject the deployment of new things. And so it was kind of wild to see. And that's where, GIF really got his guard up on, we don't talk. We're trying to make sure that things are protected, especially because we want to make sure that each iteration is unique, but also that those people are protected against bad situations that could happen.
Yeah. Can I just point out real quick at the chat? Like, this is what I'm talking about multiple ecosystems coming together. So we got obviously Helios, right? We got Vibra. We've got Rags to Riches. We've got Morpheus, obviously, same thing. Thomas and Archie from Mafia. Like, all these different like communities that we're involved with are all coming together into this chat because we're here talking about this stuff, right? Like, I'm sorry. I just love to see this. I think this is amazing.
I think it's the best part of crypto.
A lot of them are coming over for the first time to TitanX. So and again, it's going to work both ways. Like they're all coming over from Pulse Chain and taking a look at TitanX and vice versa. And that is the beauty in this. That's
exactly how I found Pulse Chain, was through TitanX and seeing you guys building on Pulse Chain. And that's when I'm like, who's this Richard Hart guy? And then we went down that rabbit hole.
And remember, Mafia extends to BNB chain.
Yeah.
So this is how far our reach is going right now. Ethereum, Pulse Chain, BNB right now, and we're just getting started. Hopefully, this will bear some fruit for everybody involved.
Yep. Yeah. And each iteration, people learn something new. Before with Hex and a T-share, it was proof of time, and then with Zen, it was proof of fair launch. And how can you take that component of proof of time and fair launch together without having an OA? And then taking all those components together to suss out how is this going to work together, and what is the combative system to deal with the inflation thing of a fair launch when you don't have an OA to harbor most of that supply into protective hands. And it was the whole build component that was the most attractive thing when I was calling GIF, because that was the one thing that wasn't being encouraged in anyone else, is go do something and build within an umbrella of people of like-minded ideas and see where we go to from here, and keep continuing that momentum. I think it's probably the richest part of what everything I believe that the pillars that in the symbiote of what we believe in stems from, right? Continuing to learn, continuing to grow. And each time, again, like we do with our pillars, don't paint yourself into a corner, that you have that ability to keep evolving the system each time that you go, which gets tricky with, immutable renounced smart contracts. Like you gotta have to hit it each time that you're making each of those iterations to go forward. And after now being your third project, you've hit that stride yourself on seeing that how much easier it is and more comfortable you are with the process, but yet how do you challenge each system each time that you do something new?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
And that's rule 1 through 3 is don't paint yourself in a corner. And just to kind of put a pin in the thing that we were discussing before is, after PGIF and after the success of that, people seeing the returns, everyone was sniffing out addresses, which then led us to be even more guarded and defensive when we were launching smart contracts, getting things set up and staged is, we were definitely just went full crazy mode with no comms, no nothing, blackout until poof, here it is, launched live. Which I know not everyone's going to understand that, but it was just based on what we'd already previously experienced. And then we saw fake coins pop up and people losing money on that. And it's that's not what we're trying to do here. So that kind of led us down that path of doing that, just to kind of fill in that gap for people.
Well, just to put also to expand on that a little bit further, what we were trying to do is, again, build on other people's tokens and communities, because with GIF, it started off from a vanilla deployer to then have its evolution of things being deconstructed, not just sent to a dead address. And what that does is a very interesting metric when you're going to look at how the market cap or people understand what that supply does, both with a fixed supply and then the permeable tokenomics. GIF, you want to go through permeable for a little bit, and then we can kind of start to roll back into some of the other things from there.
I mean, Permabull is just like an aggressive buy bird. Like Titan X knows all about this. This community knows all about it. All the founders are like, yeah, like how high can we make our buy and burn, right? Like how much can we pump through there, because we know what is taking place there. We know it's like this this anonymous, non-existent whale who all they want to do is buy and burn the tokens, and they will never sell, right? And so it's just pumping economic energy into your core token over and over and over again, just daring the bears to come in and try to sell the price down, right? Especially if they're like minting. See, the cool part about Titan X is it's like the same thing, but you're minting it plus time, right? You're giving things time, and dude, you're probably going to talk to that a little bit too, where you're not just minting the token immediately, and you're giving time to for things to mature, right? Before it hits the market. But the interesting part about what we're doing with Pulsar is, like, obviously we see that, right? We know that this is happening, but as an infrastructure token, that's what we're doing here with Pulsar. It's an infrastructure token. We do not want to outperform Titan X. And if we do, we're pulling Titan X with us. Like that's the plan. So that's where the arbitrage comes in. That's it's what lubes up the gears a little bit more, so to speak, right? And keeps things going. And I think that's a very like benevolent way to build, if I do say so myself, is that, we're not trying to outperform Titan X, but you got to understand there's a difference between our ratio with Titan X and our USD value of our token. Mm-hmm. If Titan X goes up without us or because of us, it doesn't matter. Our USD value goes up with it, right? So it's not like one of those things where it's like, I don't want to own Pulsar. It's not going to outdo the ratio between Titan X. It's like, bro, it's going to, USD goes up. That's ultimately what we want, right? Like that's all that really matters. I don't know. I know dude's got something to say. Let's hear it.
No, I completely agree. And like, so let's just be clear. So when you're saying infrastructure, right? Like this is the beginning of Pulsar, and like now everything you build will be built on top of Pulsar, right? And so you're raising the value of that token through use case or however being. And then when you're doing that, you're pulling up Titan X because you have that price ceiling. So the second you go above that, you're sucking up Titan X that's coming off the market forever in one way or another. And that's the value proposition between Pulsar and Titan X.
That's right. And that price ceiling is dynamic, right? And that's why the protocol fee is very interesting, rather than when people think of ROIs or like all the rest of that type of stuff. With a staking based token, we're deconstructing Pulsar as it goes, and then based on how it exists on two different chains, that arbitrage opportunity is there to encourage you to create more Pulsar, which burns more Titan X and fills the Dragon X vaults and the Helios smart contract and all the rest of that, both to push the entire ecosystem in that movement direction. When we've obviously seen that through both vaults on how a very aggressive buy and burn can do something very different than something else. And especially with that having an auction-based system with a limited mint, and then obviously it's treasury, it's a little bit different than just Titan X or Hyper, or even the consideration to Hydra, I believe, doesn't have a staking feature to it, right? So like that's a very different counterbalance when it comes to a reinforcement loop and a balancing loop. In most systemic design, you have both of those components that tie back into each other to reinforcement. And if you look at something like an invasive species, like a Kudzo or something like that, because they don't have the balancing loop and reinforcement loop, that's why they're an invasive species. When things are actually counterbalanced, they work fluidly. And because of that, they can actually dynamically move more interconnected than anything would, because there's no resistance to its counterbalance of the seesaw.
Let's get into some flowcharts, I guess. Like, where would you guys like to start specifically?
Oh, cool. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, do you want to pull that up?
I tested this out before, so this should not be a problem. There we go. How's that look, dude? Sweet.
My internet is trash right now. Am I coming through okay for you guys?
Yeah, you're great on our side.
Yeah. So here's our flowchart. looks absolutely crazy. Especially if you haven't been following like all the other stuff we've built in the past, like it looks absolutely crazy. But I do think it looks nice in the sense that Kool-Aid really polished it up very well. You should see where we started, right? So yeah, I mean, the cool part about what we're doing with this infrastructure token is just to really focus on it being really simple for the user to engage with. So here's the wild thing is what's happening on the background is very complicated, right? And that's what we're going to try to explain and clarify a little bit better. But to a user who just wants to mint some Pulsar, very easy. You show up to our front end. It looks very similar to like a Uniswap forked front end, right? And you can simply just plug in however much Titan-X you want to send in so that you can mint Pulsar, and it'll calculate what the Ethereum protocol fee will be. It's 2 transactions. You approve, and then you mint. And then that's it. You've got your Pulsar immediately. Do whatever you want with it. Maybe there's an arbitrage moment where you want to sell it and run it through the system again, right? And make a few bucks. I saw somebody made a few $100 the other day, and I think somebody was making some extra money today too, just watching the prices and the ratios between Titan-X. So you can do that.
I'm sure those are GIF fans. You know, there's GIF guys out there that they're already aware of how to play, and you've got some experts already. So
that's right. That's right. And that's the cool part is like the more arbitrage that happens, the more these guys can make money, the better it is for the system. It bolsters the whole system every time an arbitrage happens. So fantastic, right? So that's plugging through the system. Now it's like, okay, well, what happens on the back end? We'll start with the Titan-X. So for one, we didn't want to take any Titan-X for ourselves. We think it's better to, if you're going to take a protocol fee, take it in ETH, take a little bit of the ETH. Then that way, like if we blow up and we get super popular, there's no sell pressure on the Titan-X, right? It could only be buy pressure. It could only be like, oh, we should have more Titan-X because everything's working really well. And you know what I mean? So at any rate, 100% of the Titan-X is being used in some fashion. 50% of it is going to be bridged over to Pulse Chain. So what's happening on the smart contract is it actually just the Pulsar smart contract collects the Titan-X and it just sits in there until another function is run. But when that other function is run, then it does a few things. So it'll send the Titan-X to the Pulse Chain OmniBridge smart contract. It interfaces in there so that it starts the bridging process. But then the other 42%, let's call it, gets burnt out of existence right there on the spot. So when a user comes in and mints, it burns that 40% of their Titan-X is out of existence the second they mint their minting transaction goes through. And what that does is what's that?
That's massive.
And not only is it burned, but it also gives your user wallet credit for the burn. Just like you actually did it yourself. That way, I think it's 80 billion to get that 8% permanent miner bonus. So when people need to start mining again, they're going to want to have that bonus accredited to them. And so we wanted to make sure that you, as the user, not our protocol, was getting the benefit of it. Because again, this is an infrastructure pass where we want to build something that benefits not just the protocol and a protocol first-based mentality, but a user who uses the protocol as well.
Yeah. So how sweet is that? It gives you, so essentially we're interfacing with Titan-X the correct way, right? We're interfacing with the smart contract on the back end, and we're telling it this user just burnt this amount of Titan-X. And then that is saved. It's basically remembered is probably the best layman's term to put it, that burn happened and the amount. So that when if that user ever ends a miner on Titan-X, it looks for bonuses. Like the smart contract will look for a bonus when you go to mint your Titan-X. And if it sees it there that you minted via Pulsar and you burnt Titan-X, you're getting more Titan-X than that next person who never did this, right? With the same amounts. So I think that's cool. You could take that. We could have taken that as a protocol. We could have gave our own protocol credit for that. We could have given any address credit for that. But instead, we chose to give our users the credit for that because we felt like that was just the most obvious way to take this, right?
Yes.
So that's pretty sweet. Also, when you burn Titan-X and you interface properly with the Titan-X protocol, you immediately get the rebate, right? So because we burnt Titan X, it will immediately the Titan X protocol will mint out new Titan X from the 0 address, which is cool, right? Come on, you run the Pulsar address and it's minting Titan X, right there in an instant. Very cool. So it takes that Titan X and it basically sits in our Pulsar protocol as well until the distribute function is turned, and then it goes to our buy and burn. So it will use that Titan X, that brand new Titan X that was minted into existence, to buy and burn Pulsar. So that's very cool. That's just an added little leverage play on Pulsar. Let's see. Oh yeah, and then the other 8% that was gonna be burnt is sent to the Helios Treasury address and the Dragon X Vault. And that's where kind of our tip of the hat to you two guys. And like I said before, you were the only guys that where we could really interface with you and contribute. So that's why we chose you guys. I've already had people ask me like, why are you choosing those guys? And I'm like, well, because I know them, and like, they can actually use the Titan X, right? Within the system. So of course we're going to do that. Right. So yeah, sweet. So that takes care of all the Titan X. That's where it all goes. On the Ethereum side, we're taking in Ethereum as a protocol fee. What our smart contract is doing is actually wrapping the Ethereum and sending it to the buy and burn address so that is prepped and ready to go ahead and buy Pulsar off the market and then burn that. And then we are taking a percentage, 12.5%. To be specific, it's 10% goes to a multi-sig developer wallet that is used to I don't want to set any expectations, but this is what is going to be used to continue building on this infrastructure, okay? The other 2.5%, that's Genesis, right? And it's split between 3 wallets. So it's a very low percentage that's actually being taken there. I know some people freaked out on the original numbers that were put up. So we addressed those and we made it a little bit more digestible for everybody. Beyond that, yeah, the Ethereum protocol fee, like I said, we're interfacing with the Uniswap V3. Obviously we're using a universal router, right? Or the V3 router and not the pool directly because it's a lot more secure that way. Yeah. And I think that pretty much covers it. Oh, let's talk about the Pulse Chain side. Can I jump to Pulse Chain now?
Let me recap a few things here. Okay. So with the Titan X, so you do have half of it's getting bridged over on the Pulsar side, and we can talk about that in a second. Yep. And the other half, it's split into 3 different segments, but all 3 of those is locking up Titan X forever. So you can just simplify that. Half of it is getting locked, and the other half is locked as well on the Pulsar LP, right? But we can get to that. And then with the ETH, you've got it's wrapping to wrapped ETH, which that's just for development side. All the smart contracts require wrapped ETH. They can't do anything with the regular ETH. And this buy and burn is on the Ethereum side.
Yes.
Okay. All right, cool. I think we let's what's happening on Pulse Chain.
All right, let's go to Pulse Chain. This is the fun part. All right, because this is very, very new stuff over here. Yeah. So, all right, so the Titan X, right? 50% of what the user used to mint Pulsar is sitting in our smart contract. And when the user mints Pulsar, a duplicate version of Pulsar will also be created and sits in that smart contract too to pair up with the Titan X. Then when you run the function on our smart contract that anybody could run, it's completely decentralized. You could run it from Etherscan if you want. It's called Bridge to Pulse Chain. And what that does is it grabs the Titan X and it grabs the Pulsar and it interfaces with the forked version of the Omni Bridge that the Pulse Chain developers built. And it tells them like, hey, we're sending in tokens to go to Pulse Chain. And then this is where things got a little funky the first time. So I think this is probably a good time to address that. When we
all right, so just real quick, sorry. So you're actually minting Pulsar on ETH. So 100% of the Pulsar on Pulse Chain is bridged from ETH. Like you're doing no minting on Pulse Chain.
Correct.
Well, except for the bridge minting, but that's a technicality. Yeah.
And we technically had that experience with iBurn moving in the other direction because we took the EICOSA to bring that in and then create the iBurn asset on the Pulse Chain side. So we actually went the other way around this time on how that use case would work.
Don't give away all the nuggets. Look, we got. So you're saying bridges go both ways? Okay, well, we're not going that far yet. So right now we're talking about going from Ethereum to Pulse Chain, and so when we interface, there's a lot of technical stuff that happens when you're dealing with a bridge. One of the things is that when you interface with that smart contract, you have to tell that smart contract what is, for a better term, is called a relay token. That relay token is essentially our Pulsar pathway token. We deployed multiple times on testnet on Sepolia, and we interfaced with the actual bridge the Pulse Chain devs built for testnet before Pulse Chain even launched. And we're dealing with that, and we're basically minting Pulsar from Sepolia on the Pulse Chain V4 testnet. Like that's how deep we're going with all this stuff. And that was working great. Those validators just validated our bridging. It was super fast, easy. It calculated our relay token, no problem. When we go live on mainnet, after we go through all this stuff and we've tested multiple times and everything looks perfect, we go mainnet, and the Pulse Chain validators have never had anybody interface with their bridge the way we have. We were the first ones to do that. So the validators had no idea what was coming in. And out of caution, only 4 of the validators confirmed, and they basically didn't give us our relay token. It reverted to a 0 address. So what happens there is essentially everything that got bridged, we're not receiving on our pathway on the other side. Out of no fault of our own. This has nothing to do with faulty code or nothing like that. They just were not prepared.
And those tokens are unrecoverable?
Unrecoverable. Yeah, they're sitting in a 0 address on Pulse Chain. Unrecoverable. So the good thing is it was protocol owned, right? Those tokens were protocol owned, so they're essentially just burned. But that's not what we're trying to do here, so that's why we had to shut it down. Like as soon as we noticed, and as soon as we started getting in contact with the Pulse Chain developers, we're like, we got to shut this down. Nope, this is not going to work, because you cannot relaunch with a new relay token. You can't tell them, oh, here's the new relay token, because that's an attack vector, right? That has to be hard coded. You cannot change that once it's set. So yeah, we shut it down, and I spent day and night, literally day and night, for 10 days getting this all fixed, double testing, speaking to the Pulse Chain validators. They're awesome, by the way. They responded real quick. They're like, hey, we got this sorted out. It's fixed. It'll never happen again. Like, good job. And I was like, all right, awesome. Let's go. And, fortunately, I just have the right connections over there. And so we got it going. So then I'm thinking, all right, we have to make people whole over here that had already minted Pulsar. So that's why we put in the option to allow the version 0, we're calling it Pulsar, to just mint 1-for-1 for the new Pulsar with 0 protocol fee. Right? So it's just a quick little swap. Now, keep in mind, there's a timer on that, and it's very important that there's a timer on that. So we're down to about 4 or 5 more days. So hopefully anybody who actually minted Pulsar, which isn't a very many, it seems like they've all seen it, because I'm watching them all minting from V0. So that should all be good. All right, let's get to the fun stuff. Unless you have is there any other questions I left out, dude, on that part?
No, I guess so recapping again, you were successful on testnet, from testnet on ETH to the testnet on Pulse Chain. Everything worked, and it wasn't until you're doing the exact same thing on mainnet, and that's when they were having the issue.
Yep,
so
exactly right. Thanks.
All right.
Okay, let's get to the fun part. All right, so now our relay token is set to the Pulsar pathway. So that means that contract, which nobody owns, is collecting all these wrap tokens. And you can go on Pulse Chain right now, and you can look at our Pulsar pathway contract, and you'll see 3 tokens in there. You'll see TitanX from Ethereum, you'll see Pulsar from Ethereum, and you'll see PulseX V2 LP tokens sitting in there. So those LP tokens represent your ownership of that pool that was created, and those are sitting in a smart contract that nobody can withdraw from. So that is permanently locked on Pulse Chain. So there will always, as long as Pulse Chain exists, there will always be locked liquidity of our 2 tokens, right? The TitanX and the Pulsar token, which I think is sweet. And the way that V2 works is it auto compounds, so it just becomes bigger and bigger as time goes on. So super cool.
And so yeah, that's a single pair, right? It's Pulsar / Titan X. That's the pair that you guys
Yep.
have. Okay.
Yeah, and as soon as we spun that up, I already saw like people adding liquidity to Wrap Pulse and Titan X from Ethereum, and you start to see like, all right, this could be the beginning days of like, you know, really being a cross chain token early on that's been done by community members, right? That's kind of cool.
Yeah, that was wild to see. Like actually to have Titan X on Pulse Chain like showing up in your wallet was cool. Really, really cool. I did it just because it's like what I was explaining to the boys is like, you know, when you get that first check and it whether it's your first job or what, and it's usually like $1 or $10 and you frame it. That was that kind of moment for me. Like being able to get that on another chain was really, really cool.
So now you guys have the infrastructure. You have Pulsar not only on Ethereum but also on Pulse Chain, and so
Yep.
you're now free to build whatever your heart's content, right, on both chains, on either
That's right.
or both. Yeah.
That's right. Yep.
You did kind of leave out a small detail too on the ETH side is just how much optimization went into the contracts to save on gas fees. Like they really went out of their way to do that because as you guys know, like not just minting, but doing more complex execution of smart contracts can get really expensive because essentially we're just stacking a process order and each one has its own cost. So by the time you're hitting a button, it's like, don't be surprised if it's $70 to $200, depending on how big of a thing you're doing. Whereas they really went out of their way to optimize that. And so everything that's built on top will benefit from that too.
Yeah, we cut our gas costs for minting by 23x from when we started to when we figured out how to do all this stuff. And you know, some of my mentors are they're just awesome, man. Like these are just diehard devs that have been doing this stuff for years and years. And you know, they're just awesome, man. They've taught me so much. It's wild. And one of the biggest things is gas optimization, especially on Ethereum. Like we got to make sure we do everything we can to make everything as gas optimized as possible. And this is something where a lot of devs kind of, you know, drop the ball on. Or the auditors don't even look at this stuff. You know, there's certain things
that's
about
a different
that.
That's like a whole
layer.
different service. Yeah, if you want gas efficiency, that you got to talk to somebody else. The auditors, they just want exploits. That's all they're looking for.
This is why you see these really cool transactions that happen, like in minting Pulsar. Really cool transactions, only the important ones. Then the rest just kind of sits and can all be moved to where they need to go when the gas says it's all right, it's pretty cheap. Let's do it now. Or a community member wants to do it because they want to, maybe there's something they're trying to do, right? So they want to move liquidity, or they want to move to the buy and burn, or they want to move to Pulse Chain. Whatever it is, they can just go kickstart it whenever they want. But yeah, the gas savings, 23x, man. We really cut that down.
And those are like levers that you think about, like when you need to do something, that button is available to you based on what the component situation is. And just like the dude was saying earlier, having a start feature is important in case, you know, critical mass is coming through at a particular time. Building that again, component by component, as we went through the process of teaching ourselves the entire gift to noble, stable, and dynamic ceilings. And now how do we do that through a bridge that allows this token have interoperability on both chains, and we can use it on both chains, which also gives the ability to push the build on Titan X into Pulse Chain and to see where it goes from there.
Yeah, so builders can now build on both Pulsar on ETH side, Pulsar on Pulse Chain side, which is exciting because there's already people starting to talk and communicate with us about building on the Pulse chain side of Pulsar. So it could get really fun here really quick.
Right.
I don't think it's going to be anything compared to like just the overall building on Titan X. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that in my life. What I've seen in the last couple months, but you know, it should be really good. Yeah. As time
Right.
goes
But again, like this is the infrastructure pass, right? And I think that's so important to have the roads available to you for other people to innovate in the more creative ways that they want to, without having to, you know, lay electrical lines, lay road foundations, lay, you know, water mains and water piping. So that way you're just there. You have all the freedom to be as creative as you want, where having all the super gas efficiency the buy and burn availability for arbitrage to push back into the burn and build on Titanx ecosystem to keep that flywheel moving multi-chain. So it's pretty wild, all things considered.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see what we got going on in the chat real quick. We have not. Very excited about Titanx Pulse Chain. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so I guess we can lead into also like what's your guys' vision on what's next to come. I saw somebody asking about PGIF. You know, is there what happens next with PGIF? You know, they're always wanting spoon-fed alpha. I don't want to really press you guys on giving out information because I understand how it feels being on the receiving end of that. But I am curious, like, what's the next vision you guys have now that you have the infrastructure? I guess also, I think a lot of people that don't know what's going on, they're going to go to your website and they see, oh, it's, you know, here's the mint page, and then they see, oh, this outrageous ETH fee, and I'm getting a negative ROI on this minting. They're like, what is this protocol? This is trash, and then they walk away. And like, that's not exactly what Pulsar is, right? Like, that's just an aspect of it. And if that doesn't make sense for you, then don't do it, right? And that's part of, I guess, it is an infinite supply token. Am I right on Pulsar?
Yeah.
Well, it's creation, not inflation. So remember, you're bringing and binding those economic energy and notes together to create the Pulsar token, which again, almost all of that extra fee goes to deconstruct Pulsar completely, not just send it to a dead address or something like that. And because you have that, you've got, again, the dynamic flywheel. What happens when Pulse 10x's, 20x's, and then everything runs on that side. So then you've got that economic energy to bring back in on the east side to, again, refill the vault, to then re-mint yourself fresh Pulsar, to then lock up more Titanx on Pulse Chain for people to build with, which also theoretically burns it from the Ethereum point of view's access from the Uniswap liquidity pools and all the rest of those type of things. So each time that particular action is done, you are making Titanx deflationary while creating an economic asset that can be used in many other facets for build on Titanx use cases.
I'll just say this to kind of preface the whole topic of talking about the future and setting future expectations. Is it's a slippery road, you know, like we all went through the 2017 ICO bubble where everyone had a roadmap and everything was about selling the future and about talking about like, hey, we just launched this, we super rushed it, and we need you to, you know, all fund us to now be able to afford developers and to actually make what we just said we were going to make, and all these other storylines playing out. And then we got to see the different narratives play out with different hex pieces, and then Pulse and the different communities that tried to launch out of that, and all the fundraising that they did and things like that. So we take a pretty hesitant approach, not because we're like trying to hide something, but just because like it is tricky. Like you got to market and you got to be able to talk about like why somebody should care about the future, while at the same time you're kind of like really not trying to set expectations and making future promises, because then if it doesn't happen, then everyone's pissed off. So I'll just preface with that, and then I'll go ahead and like Gift, take it away.
No, I mean, that's right. Like, you know, in my unique perspective has always been speculation is key in crypto. That's literally how it's always been. If you telegraph everything that you're doing, then like, you know, what's the point? What's the point of all this? Like sure, you want to give people a heads up on like what's being built, what your plan is, what's the general outlines of what you're doing, but you really want to make sure that that's actually what you're going to do before you start telling people, you know, and choreographing like how all this is going to look and how it's going to all play out. But you know what's cool about our situation right now is you can kind of look at our history. If you've got the time, you could look at the history of what we did with our previous deployments and what they were there for. And what did I call the gift token from day one? A test token, right? To test all new ideas, everything that we try to do. So if you're asking, you know, is PGIF going to be affected by anything that we're doing? You're just not paying attention, and that's okay. But you just go look at the definitions of what those tokens are for. And so if we need to build and test something so that we do it right on the TitanX ecosystem, we've already got our test infrastructure in place. Call it our test net. And just because it's a test net doesn't mean it's worthless. Our test net did a 30,000x. So again, if you're paying attention, you can kind of see what the history will tell you on what may or may not happen going forward.
And that's the most important part about building on history instead of on, ideas of grandeur, especially when you're dealing with ideas of grandeur. It's too easy to get ahead of yourself instead of refining each individual simulation to exactly what you're sussing out. So that way it's not too much noise in between what you're trying to study, right? It's very surgical in what you're looking at and why. And that gives you the availability and the convenience to really look at just one aspect of one idea of mechanics and system design, just to ensure that the system is load balanced correctly.
Yeah, this is very similar to like Kusama, right? And is it Polkadot? Are you guys familiar with Kusama at all?
I remember what it is, but I never really looked at it. And like, you can get like 10 Kusama for one Polkadot or something like that. I never really played with it though.
I mean, it was the test net for Polkadot, but with the same concept with there is value to these tokens. And I see value to doing that again, because like you're going to attract, when you got money involved, you're going to attract lots more people, lots more eyes. And that's how you really battle test something, is when you got money on the line, someone's trying to get their hands on it. So I really like the concept for sure.
So I'll extend a little bit and maybe say more than I should, but no man left behind. So all these previous things that we've done are not just going to be abandoned, are not just going to be walked away from. We will have some sweet, juicy tie-ins down the road. That has always been the plan. And we were crystal clear about this from the start with GIF, with PGIF. And again, while trying to ride this line of not set expectations and tell you specifically, like, we're going to go do this, this, and this. But there will be a coming together of all of this basket of things getting built now and has been built, and they will all come together in a beautiful way. And you'll be able to do things with that to make APY and APR. And that's the simplest way, I guess I'll leave it. And put the pieces together on that. It should be pretty clear what I'm saying to those listening.
Right. And I do appreciate that approach as well. Like, again, something I learned with Helios is I set a launch date and then decided I wasn't ready and had to push that back. And I got a lot of pushback. And that was just delaying a project. Like, if you want to pivot to doing something else, that's going to cause issues. And, like Hyper, we thought that was going to take TitanX, and now it takes ETH. And that pivot really upset a lot of people. And it was like, if they didn't have a previous expectation, if that was the plan the whole time, then they would have been okay with it, right? Because everybody's okay with it now. It's shown that it's doing its thing, it's working. But just pivoting or delaying, that upsets the crowd. So I totally get that.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine if we would have come out and stood out and started like doing comms and Whitepaper like 8 months ago when we had V1 in our brains. Oh my God, that would have been a disaster, because it's nothing like what it was going to be. And so talk about like looking like idiots. We would look horrible right now. And so again, I don't know if this is the best strategy, but we've kind of played it tight to the chest.
And it still didn't go over well. They're like, it's so vague. This white paper is so vague. I don't get it.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, because right now we want to give you guys key concepts. Like, these are key concepts, and these are what, Larry? What
component simulations, not speculation.
Pillars.
That's right.
We're building on here. Like, you gotta have a North Star on what you're trying to do. That's our North Star. Now, will you guys see a more straightforward like white paper where everybody can go through and read this? Yes, we're working on it right now, and we're gonna make things way clearer, and we're gonna do it in line with how the rest of the TitanX community is doing it, so that it'll be much more streamlined for everybody.
Yeah, I feel like that's where there's a lot of confusion, is because people see the minting page as like the main component of what Pulsar is, and that's just the creation of it, and not what Pulsar is. What Pulsar is the infrastructure for what you guys are building.
That's right. And then it's also under the hood. So that way the user doesn't have to deal with it if they don't want to. But if they actually understand it, the road is available for them to travel, deconstruct, and utilize in future aspects. Again, it's infrastructure. So that's already created. But at the end of the day, the economic and energy that you are using to create Pulsar, to burn Titan X, and to have that immediately is immediately there. Where you want to take it from there, it depends on what you're looking to do.
Right. That's another silly part is when someone's asking me like, well, what do I do with blah blah blah? I'm like, I don't know your strategies, your short term, long term goals. Like, it's a very complex question to ask a random person on the internet. That's do your own research. Like you've got your own strategy. You need if you need me to tell you exactly what to do with tokens, then I'm not the guy for you.
That is a weird thing people outsource on the internet, isn't it? Like they
Yeah.
outsource literally what they're going to do with their money. I can't really think of another area that does that so aggressively as crypto.
Stocks.
Right, and
Stocks, yeah.
You need a broker for that, though.
That's what brought me to crypto, is being my own bank, and doing my own thing, and like forget these third parties that are gonna do what they want with what my money is. Like, this is my money, I'm holding it, and DeFi is like the Lego building blocks of the traditional finance world. Like this space is like 1,000 times better than what traditional can offer. Like, yeah, and that's the whole point. I'm gonna do what I want with my money. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think I was just saying this the other day. I was like, man, it's so weird being in crypto for as long as I've been in crypto. Like, I feel nervous having my money in the bank. Like, I don't know why, because it's not like I've ever been like scammed or like the bank refuses to let me withdraw. But it's just I understand custody so much better than I did before, and so it's like I sleep very well at night having my crypto holdings, and I worry that I always have a little bit too much in the bank account. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's why people
don't know. It's not your money. It's not.
That's
your
why
money.
people outsource their thinking to others and want others to make their decision for them. Because look at the trust system that's been built that they think is good. It's the banks, and that's such a horrible custodial model that we use. And so if we think that's good, of course you're asking some random internet guy, what should I do with all my tokens and what should I do with all my money? Yeah.
And that's why we see tons of usage on the centralized exchanges, because that's more what people are accustomed to, and they need the login and password and tech support, and you don't get that with DeFi. But I'm okay with foregoing that, because the freedom and self-custody is very important to me. So
I completely agree, especially moving forward. I mean, even looking at where AI is moving into the future, that proof of being human is going to be questioned right soon. It's like, is this video real? Is this picture real? Is this dark internet that everything is bots that you're talking to? It's kind of wild. So having that self-custody and self-notoriety that I know this is solvent and available and mine. Now, granted, you have to play with it correctly, just like everything should be. But it's very interesting on where we are in this, time and space.
Yeah, 100%. You struck it. Like you said, it's about freedom. It really, like, the older I get, it really is, life itself is about freedom of movement. So keeping my health and fitness in line so that I can, have movement with whatever, with your kids, with yourself. Being able to move and travel requires money, being able to have custody over your money, all these are just pieces of freedom of movement. And that's really how I look at it more and more as, the years roll on. And that's what's going to continue to be most important to me personally. And I know that that's like echoed literally throughout all of crypto, because I don't know if people can define it that way, but that's essentially what people are looking for.
To me, that's a sign of like a critical thinker. I think if you're a critical thinker, you're able to make these decisions for yourself. I think that type of person would be attracted to DeFi.
Completely agree.
So the main LP is Titan X Pulsar, right?
Yep. And it's early, guys. So if you guys are gonna go look over there and then complain about how little liquidity is over there, like, keep in mind, this is a decentralized process. This is only coming from the minting. and we're not getting a lot of traffic, guys. Like we're just not. And hopefully that changes so that we can continue to build and do our thing. But that's just where we are. But if you go look over there, and if you already know what the contract address of TitanX from Ethereum, then you'll be able to find the Pulsar from TitanX as well. And there's already an LP pool there. People are already trading it. People already did cross chain arbitrage has already taken place. They did not wait long for that. So it is what it is. Like we will get there. It'll get there. And on our minting page right now, the only tab that's available is to mint. The next tab I want to get opened up, which is done. I just want to add some more statistics to that tab that are more relevant than where we started. And so I'm just going to add just a few, 5-6 lines of very important statistics so you know what you're doing. And then that will allow you guys to trigger that just for fun. And you can just trigger and deposit TitanX and Pulsar into an LP pool that's permanently locked, and anybody can do that. I'm going to add an extra security layer to that too, but hopefully that'll be out soon. And that's gonna give hopefully give people a little bit more excitement and understanding of what we're doing.
Well, I mean, if you look at like the early days of TitanX, we had the V1 buy and burn that only Jay controlled in the very, very beginning, and then the V2 came on later. And then as the project matured, time was given faster buy and burn, the ratio going up and down, all those rest of that stuff in that very early days of TitanX. The system has to harden and mature to unlock those additional features. Otherwise, you rush to component rather than getting everything, allowing it to settle, and then moving through there to also again watch everything to make sure it's exactly happening that you want it to. Now, granted, we have all these tested and it's good, but we like to do things component by component for that exact reason of looking at the system intrinsically and making sure that all is all hands and correct, as you would want from any situation, right? You would want everything to be looked at soup to nuts.
So what measures did you guys go through to ensure security of Pulsar?
Oh,
that's a great
there's
question.
not enough time on this stream.
Where do you want to start on that one, huh?
Oh man, and how do I say it in not in geeky terms? That's gonna be hard. Well, let's just put it this way. I'm gonna lean on my mentor devs. Like these guys have dealt with like hundreds of millions of dollar platforms, and they've been around, and nobody knows these guys. They're not public, but I got linked up with them because we know people, and they came in and they're willing to mentor me, and they showed me a lot of security tricks, a lot. So some of the more important ones is like you got to prevent flash loan attacks. All right, we got that. We got to prevent what's the other one? Replay attacks, right? We got to create custom nonces for our transactions. We got to pass signatures to those transactions that are important so that you don't get a flash loan attack. And there's another security feature that I will love to talk about if I can prove it to be working. I'm not going to hint on what that is, but I think we've innovated something else. But you may hear from me in 2 months and say, yeah, I tried. It didn't, there's everybody's safe, but like there's just this added layer of code that we're working with that nobody else is doing. And I haven't seen it done in our ecosystems before. I'm not saying it's never been done before, but so there's just some added stuff on security that I would love to brag about, but not until I know 100% it's for real. But beyond that, yeah, the security guys I use, I mean, these guys would run audit companies, like multiple audit companies. Like these are the best of the best, and they've showed me a lot. And I go through and I look at certain audits, and I'm like, I thought everyone knew this stuff. I thought this was common knowledge. I didn't realize that there's so much out there that a lot of audit companies still have to find in code. But it's all good. It's all good. I'm just saying from our perspective, we had the best devs working over my shoulder, essentially saying, nope, you got to do it this way, do it like that, right? And here's the reason why. And this is an extra layer we're going to add in here. and then they just keep pushing me to make the most secure contracts I can make. That's the most layman's way I could really describe it, but I'd be happy to go into detail on any of these things.
And that's
are
the
they?
reason why we also weren't rushing to market, because GIF is very particular about absolutely everything, especially even for me. Like, I have to do wordage and all the rest of my Lariisms are great, but when it comes to actually the code is law, it has to be exactly perfect, because you can't go backwards on that. Or if you're not anticipating stuff that you didn't do your homework in, you don't know what you don't know. That becomes an issue. Is when is it too much, or when's it just right? You know what I mean? You have to make sure that that oven is perfectly done to cook it exactly the way that you want.
Yeah, I don't know if I can say this, but we started with an audit, and then we brought on the security professionals and worked with them. And right now we're going through another audit, and the audit is really just to satisfy people who think that's important. If I'm just being honest,
Yep.
we don't really think it's necessary with what we've gone through and how we've structured things. We're not seeing a lot of other protocols across all chains doing it this way. And so we just kind of went our own path, but we're totally getting that. Again, just to kind of justify those that want to and need to see that.
Exactly. And that's the difference between being peer reviewed and all the rest of it, and building multiple different iterations of what we did beforehand, to know that this is exactly what it should be doing beforehand, especially without all the bells and whistles of too many things at the same time. Going through each individual, let's call surface layer, and making sure that is hardened before you moved on to the next added feature or surface layer that you want to, link up. But yeah, the other stuff should be done in hopefully a few days. And it's more or less just a tip of the hat that for people that want to see it, it's already done. And we want to make sure that we are thorough, especially with the amount of time that we put into it, the effort that we put into it, and the no need to rush to make sure everything was compiled correctly for what we were trying to do. So we want to make sure everything is finalized in the most transparent way possible.
All right. So, and I'm assuming these will be published at some point once you get, report back on, real quick, this is a V2 PulseX LP. Is that correct?
That's right.
And there's another question here. So these are the PGIF guys. Yes, they are the infamous PGIF guys.
Look at my name. Give
it away.
So I think that kind of leads into this question. I don't see Pulsar on Tinex Hub, and there is no doubt that there are people. I mean, there's people of every level. I've noticed that there's even people that won't participate in any of these Titan-X projects unless Jake himself has built it. I've witnessed that. And then you have the other layer of people that say, if it's not on Titan-X Hub, I'm not participating, and there's that. So with Mike Dean, I think his biggest thing is published audits, which I guess is kind of like what you guys are going through here to help satisfy his requirements. I mean, you guys are definitely doxed. You're here talking to me. I think that's, and then the fair launch thing, I guess, is another. I don't want to say wishy-washy. Like, what's the word? Just there's, you guys gave a notice. I guess you didn't give us a launch date and time per se, but you did give a notice in your Telegram. Would you guys? I mean, I guess for security reasons is why this was done.
Sure. Well, there's also the difference is that there's no supply till you create it. It's creation, not inflation. So there is nothing to front run unless you're actually creating it. And when we were setting up, as you know, the initial LPs and all the rest of it, especially in between a bridge and all of it, you're just paying just enough just to make sure that everything is working correctly before you unleash the fire. So when it comes to the informing of people, as you know, when people come in and be like, when dev, you're like, well, it'll be there. But with our particular market model, there's not a surplus to front run on, because you are actually creating, not inflating any particular aspects of the system. Like, you're bringing your economic model that all of that economic energy is going to be not just burning the stuff that you had before, but deconstructing the new economic asset that you are creating and getting immediately, not having a waiting paradigm or an ROI that can change or all the rest of that. This is a rubber band that works to pull up the entire ecosystem on a very refined use case for what it can do and what it can be used for in the future. And so we were on TitanX Hub the entire time till we realized that there was an issue with the Omni Bridge. And then at that point, you know, Mike took it down and I never complained at all. I'm like, I've known Mike from the very beginning. It's understandable. Let's get everything figured out turnkey, and then we can have that conversation. So like, that's what we now are doing as it's all moving forward. I mean, everything what launched Friday, and then I was on a work retreat for the last week. So we're like, all right, Sunday, let's get together, let's talk, let's go stream with some people and explain what this is and what the benefit is for the TitanX ecosystem and all the rest of the things that are going to be exciting to do on the Pulse Chain side with the build on TitanX model.
Yeah, and if you want to go into the code of things too, just to make things a little more geeky, because that's my job. If you're going to bring me on stream, I want to make things geeky. So when we created the initial pool, which I hope some people are happy, we made it only 100% TitanX and Pulsar, right? There was an early dude, you were around in the early days. We were talking like we got to do 2 pools, right? And you know, certain people were like, no, just the one. And I'm like, yeah, but there's this and there's that one. You know, we figured it out. So we got it into one pool, and we were able to hard code when we deployed. We were able to write in interface with Uniswap on the back end and set the ratio at exactly 8-1. So the ratio was created exactly 8-1, and then we deployed and dropped our LP. So it started at 8-1. It started at the ceiling price, right? The arbitrage layer. So there was no front running. You go buy, and then it's going to just get sold right back down on somebody who's arbitraging it, right? So there was no advantage of anybody rushing to our platform and making gains. So, and I think there's a very, very big difference between launching an infrastructure token and a token that's supposed to do a bunch of X's. This is our infrastructure token. Sometimes you have to put a different lens on when you look at what we're building and what we deployed. And, unfortunately, over on the Pulse chain side, the validators were slightly late validating the Pulsar as they did validating the TitanX. TitanX went through faster. I have no idea why. It's just sometimes the blocks line up that way. And the deposit into the V2 LP happened with one Pulsar for 32 million TitanX. So it went in that way. So then the pool had to, dude's laughing, I can tell. Okay, so then the LP pool had to arbitrage itself all the way down. It was $34 in volume. Let's not get all worried about it. But it arbitraged its way down, it got to the right spot, and then we were able to put some more LP in there to try to help a little bit. But so unfortunately, that chart looks wrecked. It sucks, but it's not the end of the world. It's not a big deal, right? But the main one on Ethereum with real TitanX and real Pulsar, that we deployed it exactly 8-1. We wanted to make sure that nobody felt like they got cheated because they didn't hear about it the second it got launched. There was no advantage. There was no advantage given to anybody, is really the point.
And with the dynamic ceiling, it's not going to ever matter anyways. And that's the whole important thing about where we came from to have that continuation in the process, regardless of how much Pulsar runs up or TitanX runs up or ETH runs or Pulse Chain runs. All of those is a symbiotic system of balancing loops and reinforcement loops.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not like your token is directly backed, but you're pairing, you're putting yourselves in with Pulse Chain, Ethereum, and TitanX. Like those are all kind of backing your token. It is in the sense of like the only way to mint it is TitanX and Ethereum. So I definitely understand that, and they're really, like you're saying, there's no front running it because that's a variable rate, and there's really no. There could be a better. Then that's what I was saying earlier is like you go to the mint page, and if it doesn't make sense to you, then don't do it. Like that's not the whole point of Pulsar. But I think a lot of people miss that, and I guess that would be my key takeaway with what we're talking about here is what is Pulsar? It's an infrastructure token that you guys are going to, that's the foundation of what you guys are building.
That's right.
Oh,
I like it.
so I don't know exactly what they're talking about here. Like when you're minting, the Pulsar is coming directly into your wallet, right? Like there's no
Immediately. Yeah, unless you're referring to the V0 over to the new version. And no, there's no penalty. 1-to-1 all the way up to the last day, which I believe now is Tuesday. So just a couple more days out, and then that window will close because there's an arbitrage happening between V0 and in our actual Pulsar, right? You don't want that linked. So that V0 is essentially going to be a meme token that was created from TitanX and Ethereum that only exists on Ethereum, and I highly doubt anything ever gets built on it. So it's basically just a meme coin. So if you have any, get the new stuff. Go to our front end, do it. You could trade it if you feel better trading it on Uniswap. You can do that too. There's still pools for both. So hopefully that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. When using the protocol site to provide LP, where can one find what fees are being earned? Nobody's providing LPs in your system.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they're saying there. You can please rephrase your question. Let's see. Thanks for your replies. You are welcome. When using the protocol site to provide LP, that's the same thing. I don't follow. That's awesome. I feel like that, again, to recap, you guys are working with Mike Dean. I do think that would be beneficial for you guys to get there because he is becoming that official, unofficial go-to. But it's not the end of the world, and it does. At the end of the day, this is DeFi, and all these protocols are Lego blocks, and you guys are allowed to build on there, whether people want you to or not. In my opinion, I'm happy to have you guys. It's a very clear value proposition, not only because you're directly sitting tight next to me, that's obvious, but and not me. Let me be clear. This is the Helios Treasury, locked forever. Not me. I'm not receiving any funds from these guys. But you're burning it. Like that's like the whole ethos of TitanX is TitanX is the input. Now you guys have 2 input tokens. TitanX is a leverage play on Ethereum anyways. TitanX is a representation of Ethereum. So, there's no issue there in my book as far as your input tokens are Ethereum and TitanX. Yeah, like you say, creation, not inflation. I love that saying. What else am I missing? Does that hopefully that clears a few questions up?
Yeah, I mean, that covers it for now. I mean, at the end, there's a lot we want to do, but no, simulation on or speculation on what we want to do. We want to do things the proper way, which for us is component by component, piece by piece. And we just are confident moving that way because that's how we feel things should be done, that so you don't get painted into a corner. And it may look confusing on what it does, but from the user's point of view, it's not. It's really, really, really simple, but we want you to see under the hood what's going on. So at least you can kind of understand it a little bit better because we want to keep building systemic design systems that work and flow on top of each other. So the more that you see this kind of stuff, the more you'll understand where the future of, this kind of mentality of building is. And at the end of the day, when it comes to Mike Dean, like I said, we're going through the process to court the type of stuff that people are looking for in that arena. So that way it's done. And at that point, I'll message Mike to explain to him exactly what's going on. But I mean, I've been messaging Plan A all the time. And it's the same people we talked to a year ago when all of us are just hanging out in private rooms the entire, time. So, when all of that is done, now our comms are on. And yes, we need to make sure that all things are explained a little bit more fluidly as we go. But that's why we're here now, that all the components, all the pieces are there. There's no question on what's going on and why we did these a particular way. So at this point, thanks for having us on to talk about this kind of stuff, to actually go through where it got created from and when, not just when moon, because that's in press the dev button. When's the finish button for everything? So yeah, we wanted to make sure that everything was tightened into a little bow and actually polished correctly from what we'd like to see from how we've been building Gift Tech, the Pulsar stuff, everything from on Pulse Chain, to then actually make sure it was intrinsically created correctly before we actually put it on Titan X to create that road, to make sure that it was actually drivable and timeless on how it worked as price runs up, as things happen on either side of the bridge, which again, we sussed out through 8 months of work on particular projects on Pulse Chain, that it wasn't a guess on our end what was going to happen.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, give dude his flowers real quick. Come on, let's give dude his flowers, man.
Yeah,
like people were very, they were concerned because they don't understand what's going on. Like, what are we doing? And the dude's like, "Hey, what's up, guys? Like, what's going on? Like, talk to me. Let's iron this stuff out." Like, dude, kudos. You're a gem for this ecosystem. I hope you know that.
100%. And you came over.
You've been doing, and you're so important to this ecosystem. It's not just about who's at the top and who's directing and who's doing marching orders and all this other stuff. If you want a real solid community, you got to have community leaders. And I see you as one. Just so
100. I mean, even when you came into our Telegram channel, I was asking GIF the hard questions when we were dealing with GIF and PGIF and all the rest of that. Like, that was huge for us because you wanted to learn, not just question or read someone else's opinion on something. You actually wanted to get under the hood and see how the ratchets work. And that's what a community, leader and anchor point really is. And that's what we want to do from our side as well, as be those anchor points to try to innovate and do it in a smart and timely process, but yet in a refined process that we're very confident in what it's going to do.
Yeah, I've definitely found in myself that I'm way more I want more in depth than the average user, and that shows in a lot of my designs where like it comes out with just like shits everywhere, and I'm like, the average user is going to show up to my website and be like completely overwhelmed and like and that's when I always end up having to back off like and simplify things. Like, there's like your design of your project that you have for yourself, and there's the diagram, but then the actual front end, I'm learning, it needs to be simplified and easier for people to understand. I definitely recognize that, but me personally, yeah, I want to know how all of it works. I'm a very logical thinker. I'm definitely, this is the space I need to be in. I love blockchain. I love it so much.
Yeah, I can see that passion, and I have the same thing. Like, it's hard for me to find a greater passion than like crypto, blockchain, self-sovereignty, whole 9 yards, right? And it keeps you coming back every day and putting in the hard work, especially when you're grinding away like in a dungeon at this code for months and months on end with nobody getting any praising you for doing it. Only people saying, "Win launch, win launch, win launch, win launch." And you're just, you're buckled down. That can only happen. That can only be built if your space and your community is truly keeping you passionate about it. Otherwise, there was so many opportunities for anybody to just walk away and be like,
absolutely. Hey, Giff, we've got a question in the chat. So this is the old version is currently 1/4 to 1 on Titan X. Do you want to explain to people how before the split, it goes from a 4-to-1 to an 8-to-1 as it goes across? Because I think some people may get a little confused on that.
So the old version is currently, so you're talking about like the price chart?
Well, the 41 is written there, but it's before the split.
What's the split?
The equal amount of Pulsar is minted on the other side.
Oh, so they're okay. So yeah, it's really easy. Honestly, it's just that in order to create one Pulsar, it requires 4 Titan X, right? But then why is our ceiling at 8-to-1? Well, because that only represents half of the economic energy that comes into making Pulsar. The other half is coming from the Ethereum that you're having to spend. So you simply just 2x the 4-to-1, and you got 8-to-1, and that's the ceiling where the arbitrage could happen if it goes above.
So minting is always for Titan X, and then the Ethereum is just matching the USD value of 4 Titan X.
Technically, the wrapped ETH value, but yes.
Okay. Yeah, and you're pulling that from Uniswap, I assume, the main Titanx ETH LP. Right?
Well, I'm not going to disclose exactly. There's a
Okay.
security issue with that, but we're pulling it from a reliable source, and it can always be pivoted if that source goes down.
Okay. All right. Yes, and I did realize that after the fact. He was talking about Element 280.
There you go.
And
Well, speaking of, let's talk about some Element 280 stuff, my dude. Like, talk about a launch, the beautiful chart. I love the mechanics that you added a little bit of time before people could touch what they're getting, which is very, very interesting, especially with the replay of having the tax during the launch phase versus where it is at the other end. Like, I appreciate those kind of mechanics sandwiched together. So I loved it. I really did.
it's all there designed to support the short-term and the long-term players. Before I really go into it, I do want to just say that like I did really want to include Pulsar at launch, and I absolutely intend including Pulsar in our V2 buy and burn. But it ended up being too last minute. You know, I was talking to GIF, and we decided, you know what, like, lots of things could happen. Let's just give it a little bit of time, and that's, I do respect you guys for that. You aren't trying to rush anything to the market. Like you want to do it right. If it takes longer than expected, it is what it is. As long as it's done right. So, yeah, I'm looking forward
just
to
remember
having
us.
you guys.
You remember us when your V2 comes around. I hope you don't forget us.
Oh no, no doubt, no doubts. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so we are minting is live, and it's a limited mint series. So once this hits 0, minting is forever capped. So this is a cap supply with a deflationary mechanism on it. Did you get a chance to check out? Are you familiar with Element 280 at all, or I know you were asking some questions. Did you have anything in particular, I guess I should say, or just like a quick overview of what's going on with it?
I mean, like I love the way it works. I know, like, you were avoiding using the term index, but it is a basket of always supported assets that are constantly supporting the system. Again, that goes back into anchor, stone, or keystones and cornerstones, right? When you're actually using that method to support an ecosystem, you're doing things well. Or you can just say it's the Titanx easy button, right? And that also works between like how the entire system is funneling everything. But I think using the tax-based system with a limited mint supply, and using that to reinforce the entire ecosystem is not only foundationally interesting, it is almost another infrastructure pass on how those two things work, because of how that basket again works interchangeably with everything else.
Yes. It's so I, you know, in building it, I was like, I really love the idea. But then now that it's actually in production and we're seeing it in action, it just reaffirms to me how happy I am with how this has gone. And launching with 14 LPs at the beginning, you know, there will be a Pulsar LP. Like, so the way V2 is going to work is Titanx will go into the V2 buy and burn, and the V2 will include future projects, and there will be a reallocation of percentage. So every, say Pulsar has 10%, every 100 Titanx that goes in, 10 of that's going in through the Pulsar LPs, and that's how we'll create these future ones. But yeah, I'm looking forward to expanding this, and Pulsar will be a great addition, just because like the only way to mint Pulsar is with ETH and Titanx, and I am I am bullish on those two tokens. So that's beautiful. Absolutely gonna happen. Yeah. To answer the question on the LP manager, you're talking about these. There's taxes on these for various reasons, primarily going to NFT holders. But for the LP providers, if you're going to Uniswap and you go to provide liquidity for Element, this is a tax token, and it doesn't care how or when or why it gets transferred. On any transfer, it's getting taxed. So if you go to create a liquidity or go to add to the liquidity, you're paying a tax. And then when you want to exit your liquidity position, it sees another transfer and you're paying a tax. So to avoid all of that, we've created our own smart contract that interfaces with Uniswap. So you're sending your tokens to our contract, which is whitelisted to be tax-free. So you're not getting taxed sending your tokens in. You are, then our contract creates the LP and sends the LP tokens back to you for you to hold in your wallet to do what you want. If you want to break down that LP, you just come back here and we'll break it down for you and return whatever tokens are in that LP tax-free back. The question is how do you see your fees? That's, you should be able to just go to Uniswap. You have the LP tokens, so you should be able to go to Uniswap and it would show your position. And the biggest question that a lot of people get that they don't understand between V2 and V3 is V2 is full range liquidity only. So you're required to provide both sides of these tokens. So you need Element and whatever your other token you want to provide liquidity. And it's at that current ratio that the LP is at. So there's no single-sided liquidity here. And then the second major difference is there's no rewards to claim. Like the rewards are automatically allocated to your LP tokens. So if you create a liquidity position and it sends you 100 LP tokens, you're always going to have just those 100 LP tokens. The rewards are sent, each LP token is earning more of the underlying tokens, which like in this case would be TitanX and Element. I hope that was not too confusing. I feel like now I'm starting to nerd out on how LPs work, but short answer is there's no rewards to claim. It's automatically built into your LP position. If you want to claim rewards, you would just withdraw some LP tokens and you would get your rewards.
Yeah, that's how you're paid in V2 is your LP tokens are increased because your pool ratio is changing as you're collecting those fees. It's not as cool as V3, but it is vital. Like you still got to have V2 on a lot of use cases. But a lot of people that came into crypto later, I mean, shoot, I remember before there was Uniswap, right? But people who came in later and maybe all they know is V3, Uniswap V3, you're very spoiled. Like being able to mint a NFT representing your position that just feeds you so much data and information, and you could transfer between wallets, and there's all kinds of cool stuff you could do. Well, you guys are all learning this with TitanX Farms and all this other stuff, right? So yeah, there's a lot to it. Just understand you're a little spoiled on the way you get things these days. It used to be a lot harder to pull up this information.
Oh, you're sounding like a grandpa on blockchain.
I know, I'm so old. You can't stay off the lawn.
Yeah. But yes, I am super excited about, we pulled in 1.5 trillion TitanX.
That's awesome.
I'm so blessed that people see the value in this protocol. And I mean, I tried to, showcase that, we are literally buying and burning every token on this list. If that's not supporting the whole ecosystem, I don't know what is.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. And I think it's fascinating, the liquid supply versus the NFT side. Like I always think of these as like, it's an interesting way to watch chess being played per game. And it's always a good lesson to be watching what works, what was interesting, and what do you think the future is going to be on how those mechanics are being utilized and, evolved as time goes on and people play with these type of mechanics and use cases.
Yeah, my eyes will be glued to this stats page for quite some time. I'm very curious to see how the market reacts to certain conditions and what they want to do, and how this pie chart is going to evolve over the 28-day mint period, and then from there, after that cap supply position, how does this chart start to move going from there? Go ahead.
No, I was just like, I actually haven't had time to really delve into all of this because I was on vacation when I was like actually seeing the page and like all the rest of this type of stuff. So when you crack your NFT, it's very similar to a WhatsApp to get your tokens. And then obviously you don't get the rewards and like all the rest of that type of stuff. And then it actually becomes liquid, right? And you can harvest it as its NFT while it's in that state and form. You are burning your own liquid as it use cases as everything goes through, right? Obviously, because total burn is an element. But as long as you have that NFT, that reservoir of harvesters are always running. And then when you want to create that liquid back into the supply, you clearly are no longer a harvester, and then that supply exists in there. So it's going to be curious to see who unwinds when and what do they not do forever, right? And so it's an interesting game again of chess. Like 10 moves in, what has really happened in the chess game where the first 4 moves is probably the most dynamic to how people are going to be sparring off with each other in the game. So it's pretty fascinating. I love to watch this stuff.
Yeah, there's several things that I really like about it, and that's like a lot of people do compare us to the Watsa, and like what I like here is that while you're playing that last man standing game, you're still earning tokens, you're earning rewards. So like it's not like you're just holding out waiting to get this pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It's you're earning all the way there. So it's that I assume there's going to be people that do never sell, like it'll be interesting to see. But then as the backing, goes up in value, people are going to see dollar signs, they're going to want to just, who cares about the rewards? Like there's this pile of tokens that I want right now. It'll be fun to watch. People will do that. We've got 0 so far. There is a 48-hour cooldown on anything that gets minted. Like we were discussing earlier, having that time aspect allows the market to react to everybody's plays. Like there's nothing going on instantly here. You've got to wait a little bit of time, and that's to help the market react to what's going on. So
what's funny is actually GIF and I got to know each other during the icosahedron days. That's how we actually got to. There's only a few of us that could understand the systems and talk about it because it was just so Greek to people. And so yeah, that's how we got to know each other years and years and years ago. So the aspect of those designs are very fascinating. When does someone crack the piñata? And then that dance for that particular harvester is over. And then who keeps harvesting forever? Because it's a perpetual tax on a basket that reinforces a cornerstone and a keystone to an ecosystem that everything is building in the same forward direction. So it is fascinating system design to just study to see what happens.
Right. It's the bonded liquidity that I feel like changes the game here. And we're all working together for a single goal, and like some people at a glance they'd be like, why are you buying and burning other people's tokens? Like, what's the point of that? Well, like we have LPs with every one of those tokens, and the way LPs work is it's all ratios. And so if we're buying and burning a token that we're LP'd against, that's supporting us. But so we've designed the system to where we're able to support the entire ecosystem while supporting ourselves at the same time. Like how can you get any more of a win-win situation than that?
Oh, I completely agree. And the only thing that I would add to that system design is those tokens that are locked up in farms are now in a different basket, if you will, than something else. Just like technically eTitanX on Pulse Chain is in a very different basket that theoretically is soft burned forever. So each time you go through the process, unless someone wants to pick it up and buy it, which guess what? That picks up the price of Titanx to bring it back over to Ethereum. Now you're working that flywheel in a different direction over the bridge. So it's going to, again, fascinating use cases to study. And again, I highly always love to digest those type of things. And it's fascinating to see what happens again, all at the same time too. That's what's really crazy is, yes, there's a lot of build on Titan X protocols coming all at the same time, but that's kind of interesting to see it happening together, because it will reinforce infantry, artillery, and all the rest of those things coming in at the exact same time. So yeah, it's cool to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I've fallen in love with Titan X from day one. Not on Titan X day one, from my day one of finding Titan X. I found it late. But it's never, today's always better than tomorrow when it comes to mining Titan X, right? So,
well, I mean, if you get that 8% bonus permanently to your miner by minting Pulsar and arbitraging that Pulsar, you're continuously stacking that arbitrage opportunity. Even if you're making a couple bucks or a lot of bucks on the arb, each time you're doing that, you're adding that to your miner for you to get that permanent 8% bonus.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so if anybody mints from a different wallet than where their miners are, like, dude, guys, there's nothing we can do about that. So, like, if you're gonna mint, do it from wherever you're mining from, if you feel comfortable doing so. Okay, and that's how you're gonna get the credit.
Right.
That is a good point. That is. Yeah. I'm looking forward to like another thing, and like there's indirect ways that we're helping, not with just buying and burning, but like we're supporting these protocols, like these auctions, like Blaze, Flux, Bolt, these auction systems. People are participating on those based on the ROIs that are being offered, and if we're buying and burning their token, we're now increasing that ROI percentage on their platform, which is going to increase the participation on their platforms, which helps their flywheels running, which again, we're LP'd, we're bonded with these tokens on top of them. So by helping them do better and they do better, we automatically do better. And it's just that helping, double helping system. So like Pulsar is no different. Like you guys, by buying and burning Pulsar, we are going to help increase that ratio, and it's going to incentivize more minting. And when more minting happens, we're feeding your buy and burn. We're feeding the Pulsar infrastructure, that system, and that's going to support you guys. And again, when you guys are doing well, that's pulling more Titan X off the market, and that's supporting me. And it's where else in crypto do you see that?
Yep. Absolutely nowhere.
And it's all user based. It's not like we have, ICOs or, dev allocations. All of these tokens are starting from zero and are getting minted by the community. It's so amazing. And I can't believe we've seen 45 amped legendaries minted. That's 11 billion Titan X.
I know I got a couple pieces myself right there. So yeah.
Now
gotta support my dude.
That's right.
Oh, it's so amazing. Let's see. Titan X. Oh, Dragon X is doing pretty well today. It's nice. Let's see what
what's crazy is, like, in the very, very beginning, everyone was so hatey on that because it ate up the staking ladder, but now it's the blue chip for actually like what transformed into something else and set that stage. But everyone was quite upset in those very early days. But yeah, now just like what transformed off of that, turned that into the blue chip that set the stage for other things, and now it's it's evolved. The entire system has legs and it's evolved. And that's what I said to Giff from the very beginning. Like, this system has legs. And like that's what I appreciate, is looking at how those components actually have legs and work together.
Yeah. It's hard to like explain some of these things to people. Like with Dragon X, you're saying, like, there was complaints, and then now people are understanding what they're doing, and like now people are turning and they're liking it. that can be, you know, you want to explain what you're building to people without like telling them how to participate or exactly how to do it, you know.
Right.
So there's like a fine line of explaining it, but you still gotta like, you need to read the white paper, you need to understand what you're doing. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time for people to understand what's going on. So you know, in Pulsar's case, it's not that, you know, instant moon, but that's not what it is. This is the infrastructure token that will, you know, increase in liquidity as more is getting minted, and the utility of it will, I guess, we will come to see at some point in the future.
It's going to be it's going to be an interesting simulation when Pulse runs and Ethereum runs at the exact same time to see what happens between the Hart's law of bond liquidity, between those assets, between binded assets that are created to each other, and then reflexively rubber band off of that at the same. It's going to be fascinating to see.
Yeah, I feel like that's Titanx is front running the bull market. It's so amazing to see. This is in ETH right here. This is the Titanx ETH ratio.
Just
Like,
destroying
ETH is not
destroying it.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
amazing.
I
Where else
agree.
would you rather be right now? I mean, come on.
Absolutely not.
It's October of 2024. I don't know how many people believe in cycle theory, but this is where you want to be. This is an ecosystem you want to be in, and you don't want to sleep on any of this stuff.
That's
Absolutely.
right. And remember, Bull Member is next month. Pumptober, Bull Member.
Yeah.
I try not to like account on those things, but it's crazy how many times like you see the charts where it's like the last like 8 years, the last 2 4-year cycles or whatever, and broken down by month, and you're like, I can't believe it happens every damn year. Like it's crazy.
Well, 2017 was that one that was crazy when they had the 20K Christmas or whatever it was. That was my first year and a half in crypto.
I was actually going to bail out and dip. I haven't slept yet, and I'm in desperate need. I'm like falling asleep over here.
You're a champ. You're a champ.
You are a champ. Thank you so much.
It's the next day. I haven't slept yet, so I'll catch you guys later. Thank you so much for having us on. It was great chatting with you, bro. And obviously, you know, we'll continue chatting in the Telegram and whatnot. So
100.
All right. Cool. Take care, Jay.
Yeah, we'll stay in touch. See ya.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I think we had it's almost 2 hours. You know, again, thank you, my dude, for being like, let's go through this. Let's have two devs nerd out. You got some Larryisms if you want them in there, but it's a different flywheel than what you're used to. But again, that's what you want, is multiple things reinforcing anchor points, right? And so like that's good. And things working and just understanding what they do is probably the most important part, rather than FOMOing or assuming, right, what's going on. And definitely hop into our Telegram, ask questions, all the rest of that stuff. You know, right now, for us, now that we've gotten through the whole process of coming in through the, you know, the relay of the Omni Bridge to go through something that's never been done and all the rest of that stuff, it's all been figured out. So now that that's good, it's calm time, explaining stuff, teaching people what our mythos was of what we're trying to build and why we do it, you know, the way that we do. And most importantly, all of us are just building on Titanx and building on real DeFi to like help everyone out together, which is the most important part of why we're all into crypto. Self-sovereignty and being a good actor to your token, your chain, your community, your people, and try to set the bar and the standard of where you hope that to go into the future.
Yeah. And I mean, what you guys are doing is unique, and everybody's got their own little, you know, position or function in the Titanx ecosystem, how they're helping. And I see the positive value proposition that Pulsar brings. So
awesome.
I'll be happy to see you guys, you know, talking more about it, getting more, like, you know, like the GIF people have already understood it, but like there's, I feel like there's a small Titanx community that crosses over there. I feel like you guys are definitely going to have to cross the bridge on getting into the Titanx community.
Well, that's why we got the super stream set up, and we're now, you know, what I love what Mo's doing, and we've got a streamer channel for people just to drop in to get those super streams together to break bread, which is most important part of this stuff, is to break bread with people and to get to know things and chit chat and go through hierarchy of things, or just to be informed, which is super important. And now that we're at that process, it's going to be a much more fluid system, and we'll get people at least to figure out if they want to engage what it's actually doing and why it's valuable, and where it's going to be valuable in the future as we start to build on top of that structure that we're already crafted.
Nice. Well said.
Anything else, Giff?
No, I got nothing from me. I'm just super. I feel very good about where things are at right now. And again, all the flowers I've got to the dude for being inquisitive and like being a critical thinker and asking all the right questions. I think that's awesome. So looking forward to many more streams and many more discussions as time goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll definitely be in talks. Absolutely. So, like, as far as the community goes, what's the best way to reach you guys if they've got questions? Would that be Telegram?
Telegram is always easiest because we've got our moderators in there and everything. It's just a little bit more streamlined. But I get it. Like I've heard people say like you got to get out of Telegram and get out there on X and that sort of thing. So we're gonna try to do that more, of course. Kool-Aid's just a champ at this stuff. So like. He might be our best source for all the simple questions. If somebody asks me what they think is a simple question and I just like drown on for like paragraphs on end on how things work, that might not be the answer they're looking for. But Kool-Aid does a great job. He's a huge asset for us being on the team. So I think Kool-Aid's the best resource.
Yeah, just reach out to me either way. I'll be on with Vibra later tonight, and then just going through trying to get on with. All my old friends like Bad Sports and, all the people we talked to from way back in the day. It was just, I was told to not say anything. And now that that has been lifted, I am able to go be the dancing monkey and get on streams and have some fun with my friends. And, it's going to be good because this is what the camaraderie is all about. And that's why you really are excited to be here from the energy and the good momentum of where we want to go with all of this. So, yeah, coming to the Pulsar Telegram or hit up the the twits, or you can reach out to me directly. We'll figure it out and go from there.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate y'all coming on, and I'm looking forward to you guys moving forward with this. Like now that it's out there, like you said, now it's not like the party like your job is done once it's launched. Like that's just getting started.
We've barely gotten started. Yeah, we are basically like letting down the runway so we can start to land planes and do some really cool stuff. So
yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to it. So I will kill this, and until next time, y'all have a good one.
Thank you, brother.
Later. See ya.
See ya.